Hey everybody, how you doing, Jesus?
I'm doing well, Andrew. How are you?
Good, very good. So, did you want to let us know what we're going over today for advanced Photoshop?
That's right. Yeah, advanced Photoshop techniques. These are just techniques that I've used in my professional work that solve all kinds of different issues, whether you're a beginner or an advanced user. I hope that there's something in here that will help you in your projects. There's no specific category. I'm not saying that these are going to be all graphic design or photography or compositing. It's just going to be a mix of a whole bunch of different things. So I hope that there's something in here for everyone.
Excellent, cool. Yep, Photoshop advanced techniques today, everybody. So, people are coming on in. We have Jan Kabili here.
Hey Jan, how's it going? Good to see you. By the way, I just published a course with Jan at Adobe. I'll get that link and paste it in the chat, but it's a course on removing distracting elements. And talking about courses, Jan just published her course on LinkedIn Learning, new Photoshop course on LinkedIn Learning. Jan, feel free to post the link in the chat so people can check it
Sure.
out. But yeah, Jan is a fabulous instructor and she has a brand new Photoshop course, if I'm not mistaken, for beginners in LinkedIn Learning. So check that out. Look Jan
Excellent.
Kavili up on LinkedIn.
Great. My friend AJ is here. Good to see you here. She says she found it. Hello. So I see a lot of people coming in on Facebook. So just let me remind you, please give StreamYard permission to show your name and profile pic so they'll be able to credit you when you comment or ask questions. If you look underneath the live, there's the description. You scroll down until you see StreamYard.com/Facebook. Give that a click, give the permissions, jump on back. And we got Kathy Newman, who also used to be an admin of our group.
Yeah.
Remember
Hey,
Kathy?
Kathy. I do remember Kathy. Hi, Kathy.
We got Colleen from Syracuse. Good to see you here. Someone from London, Ontario. Lynn from Florida. Good to see you here. Someone from Sarasota. Great. We got someone from Edinburgh in the UK. My friend
Awesome.
Richard. I see Richard's here. Hello, Jesus and Andrew. I don't know why it says 11. Andrew 11. Let's see. Hello from
Or
Miami.
maybe he was trying to do exclamation marks and
That's right.
didn't quite press the shift key.
Wyoming.
Wyoming
Oh,
in the
my friend
house. Nice.
Stefan from New York. Yeah. Hi, buddy. Wonderful to be here. Hope all is well. Yes, things are good. My friend Miria from Sweden. Barbara from Mississippi. Someone from Indiana.
Where are you streaming from, Andrew?
I'm in Los Angeles, where
Los
it's been
Angeles,
getting a lot of
California.
rain. It's trying
Yeah.
to compete with Northern California, I
That's
guess.
right. That's right. I don't know if you can beat us though. It's been pretty bad out here.
Well, the good thing is, I guess we caught up with the rain that we need to get over being, in what's it called when?
A severe drought.
Yeah, that's a drought, severe drought. That's it. So
I
we
think
got
we're
someone
just
from
like in
Nova
a
Scotia.
normal baby drought at the moment.
A friend here from Hell's Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen. That's where Daredevil is from, the Marvel character.
Cool. Germany. And here's Jan. Thanks for mentioning that, Jesus. Here's a link to my new LinkedIn course for Photoshop beginners called Learning Photoshop. You can get that at linkedin.com/learning-Photoshop.
There you
Check it
go.
out.
Yeah, go into LinkedIn Learning and just search for Jan's name if it's easier. And it's a brand new course. If I'm not mistaken, it just came out. Jan will correct me if I'm wrong, but like about a week ago or so. So it's completely fresh off the presses. So check it out.
Nice. Nice. Got someone from San Miguel de Allende. I think that's how you say it, Mexico. Nice.
San Miguel de Allende.
You say it much better than me. Have you ever been there?
I have not. No, I haven't had the pleasure.
Yeah. We
Cool.
got Jennings Ford. Good to see you here. Someone from New Jersey. He's coming in fast. Stephen from Arizona. Good to see you here, Stephen. Lithuania. Someone else from the UK. Yorkshire. That's also UK. Phoenix, Arizona. Jim. Good to see you here. And Jan says, thanks. Sure. My pleasure. Thanks for Jesus also stressing it. So yeah, so lots to go over today. So
yeah, let's jump right into it. Yeah.
You want to introduce yourself?
I don't want to spend too. I hate talking about myself, so I'm just gonna quickly say my name is Jesus Ramirez. If you don't know me, I have a YouTube channel called the Photoshop Training Channel where I teach, surprisingly enough, Photoshop, and you can check it out. Just type in Photoshop Training Channel on YouTube. I've been a professional creative for close to 20 years now, which feels insane to say, Andrew. 20 years, my God. Most recently, I've been working as a finisher in the Hollywood industry, which means that I help create movie and TV posters. And yeah, that's the gist of it.
Excellent. So shall we jump over to the screen share?
Yeah, let's jump over to the screen share. It'll be awesome. So
Great.
before we start, I quickly just want to show people what I was talking about. If you go into helpx.adobe.com/photoshops/tutorials.html, or you can just search for Photoshop Tutorials HelpX, and you scroll down, you'll see my editing course, Remove Objects from Photos course here on the Adobe website on HelpX. So you can check that out. I just worked on this project with Jan, and the LinkedIn course that I was talking about from Jan, you will see it here, Learning Photoshop. Make sure you come and check it out.
Excellent.
It was released on 3/17. So yeah, not that long ago, just a couple days ago. So cool.
Excellent.
That's the things that I was referencing. So let's just jump right into the first example. A lot of people probably have seen this before, which is the Photoshop neural filters, or filters that use AI. I know there's a lot of talk about AI lately with the release of Firefly. We might look into it a little bit in this session, but you probably have seen this before. You have a black and white image. You can click on the colorize button, and it colorizes the image. It does a pretty good job. If you're unhappy with the results, you can click directly on the preview here to add a color.
That takes too long though, like 1 second. You know?
What do you mean? Oh, yeah, right.
No, I'm
to load
joking.
the right.
Took you like
Yeah.
1 second to like do that. Pretty amazing.
No, it's incredible. But you can make these adjustments, right? And I think a lot of people, if not everybody in this stream, have seen this before. Another use that people may have not seen in the past is that you can use it to neutralize an image. So maybe you take a photo and it looks fabulous, but you're unhappy with the lighting conditions. And obviously, this is an extreme example where the lighting actually looks pretty cool. I like it. But assuming that you wanted to neutralize this image and just apply natural skin tones to that, you could use exactly that same filter. You can go into Filter, Neural Filters, and from here, you can check that same colorize box, or turn on the button, click on the button rather. You click on that and it completely removes that ugly color cast. It's not perfect. You'll see some imperfections, but it's really, really good for just one click.
Nice.
You can, if you like, use the colorize focal point feature that I was just showing you a moment ago, or use some of these sliders to make adjustments. But quite frankly, at this point, I'm very happy with the result, and I'd rather work on it in Photoshop layers rather than using these sliders. And what I like to do is output as a new color layer. And I know that when you check this box, it looks terrible, and you might not necessarily think this is a good thing, but this is in fact a good thing. Output to a new layer, press OK. This creates a completely new layer here using the color blending mode. So the color is on this layer and the detail is in the layer below. And what the color blending mode does is it combines the hue and saturation of the current layer with the luminosity of the layer below. In other words, the detail is in the layer below, which is fantastic. Now, when you disable and re-enable the layer, you might see a couple of imperfections. For example, her shirt is not white. Her shirt is green. So if you wanted to fix that, you can create a new layer, clip it to the layer below by pressing Control-Alt-G on Windows. That's Command-Option-G on the Mac. And what a clipping mask allows you to do is apply something on this layer, but the visibility and properties are from the layer below. So what that means is that you can select the eyedropper tool, select the green of her shirt here. Let me just zoom in maybe so I can actually get it. I'm having a little trouble selecting it. There it is. And I can now paint on this new layer, and notice that just by painting on that layer without changing the blending mode or anything, it's going to colorize the image. So the reason that I didn't have to change the blending mode or anything, notice that this is set to normal. If I unclip that, that's basically what I'm doing. But when I clip it to the layer below, Photoshop applies the color blending mode to this layer because it's taking the properties and it's painting on the visible areas of the layer below. And The reason that you want to do this is so that you have ultimate flexibility when editing the image. For example, if you finish painting the shirt and maybe this is a project for a client or your boss or whoever, and they change their mind and they say, hey, can you now change the shirt color to, red or a different color? We decided not to go with green. You can easily do so because it's on a separate layer. So you can go into image, adjustment, hue and saturation, and you can just adjust the shirt to a different color. And there it is. It looks fantastic. Now, if you were to do that on the actual color layer that Photoshop outputs, by the way, I wish Adobe would just call this layer color instead of layer one, because I mean, why would they call it layer one? They know it's a color layer. If you were to
That's a
paint
great
directly,
idea that, like, when you switch to a blend mode, it suggests to take on the name of that blend mode, right?
yeah, that'd be cool.
I like that.
But anyway, in this case, with this layer, if I were just to paint the green shirt back in, and I'm going to go quickly here because I don't need to be perfect for this, but I need to paint it so that you have an idea of what I'm talking about. So if you paint the shirt in there, and we'll just assume that I did a perfect job. There it is. Looks fabulous. And my boss, art director, whoever says, hey, can you make the shirt red? Well, now I'm stuck. I can't necessarily target those specific colors. And while I can use like a hue and saturation, targeted adjustment or something like that, it just becomes too complicated. And it adds a lot of steps to something that should be very simple. So I recommend creating the color adjustment layer with the neural filter, and any adjustments that you make, just clip those to a new layer. So this one will be the shirt layer, and then maybe I can have another layer called skin, because if you notice, her arm, the skin color of her arm didn't come through. So maybe you want to fix that. So you can just select the color of the skin here. And by the way, if you have the brush tool active and you hold Alt and click, but it's not selecting that color, that's because on the eyedropper tool, the sample is set to current layer as opposed to all layers.
Right.
So go back into the brush tool, and then now it'll select the skin tone. But the point is that you can now fix the skin tone, and there it is. And again, if I were painting the skin tone on the actual color layer, I wouldn't be able to target that skin tone if I needed to. So for example, in this case, I'm not quite happy with the skin tones. They're here on this layer, right? So now I can go into image, adjustment, hue and saturation, and now maybe desaturate it a little bit and adjust the darkness and all that, just to try to get it to match better with the actual image. Again, everything is separate. Everything's easy to do. And if, again, your boss, client, whoever changes their mind and they're saying, you know what, never mind, I like the white shirt. Easy. You can just delete that red shirt layer and it goes back to white, So it just gives you total flexibility when you're editing. So yeah, just separate your layers as much as you can and keep everything editable as best as you can.
Excellent. Cool.
Cool. Let me show you another example with this technique. I am going to use this image. So if you have an image like this where you are overall happy with the photo, but you maybe want to remove some of these ugly green outlines, you can definitely do so using that same technique. If you go into filter, neural filters, you can click the color transfer. I'm sorry, not color transfer, colorize. Sorry about that. You can click on the colorize button and it gives you that result. If you remember, the original suit was black. So maybe you can click on here and, try to make the suit black again, but it's not necessary that you do that. But if you catch a mistake like that, you can definitely do so. Also, the ground had like an orange, yellowish, color applied to it in the real photo. So you might want to try to get something similar. Again, if you don't get it exactly the same, that's okay. The point is that you can now just output it to a new layer and then hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and click on the layer mask icon to create a black layer mask. It's an inverted layer mask. Now, an inverted layer mask is not the same thing as taking a layer mask and filling it with white. Let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to create a solid color fill layer. The color really doesn't matter. And we have a white layer, right? So then when I fill it with black, it'll of course hide everything. But notice what happens when I'm going to unlink it so that it's easy to see. So notice the preview here. When I click on the move tool and move the mask, you'll see that it's just a black square. That's it. Everything outside of that square is white. When you go to a black layer mask like this one, or an inverted layer mask, when you click and drag on that square, there's no edges. It's infinitely black. So it's a very important distinction when you're masking to know the difference between just filling a black square and having an infinitely black mask. So by holding Alt and Windows Option on the Mac and clicking on the layer mask icon, you'll create an infinitely black mask. Anyway,
Cool.
So with the brush tool, I can now paint with white on the areas where I want to reveal that colorization effects. So see that? I can remove this ugly green outline from him and from her dress, and this will instantly become a much better photo because, at least in my opinion, that green glow was just really, really bad. And it just becomes a much, much better image. And obviously take your time fine-tuning the details and the edges of where you paint on, but I think that you get the idea. So this becomes a much easier retouching job than it would have been normally had we not had the Nero filters. So you can easily remove ugly color cast like that just on parts of the photo rather than the entire image like we showed in the previous example.
Cool.
And by the way, let us know in the chat if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer questions as we go along. And Andrew, feel free to interrupt me with any questions that pop up on screen.
Just some nice compliments. My friend, Common Sense Meets It. JR is the king of Photoshop. He's taught me so many useful techniques over the years.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And Micah's here. He says, wicked cool.
Awesome. Hey, Micah, how's it going? Another thing is that Photoshop has the ability to work with video. So as you notice, we have a video here. Oh, there you go. It's a video. And if you take this video group and convert it to a smart object, go into filter, neural filters. You can click on colorize and output it as a smart filter. Press OK. Now I've colorized the video just with one click. Pretty cool, right?
Very nice.
Yeah, so obviously it's not going to be perfect, but not bad considering Photoshop is a photo editing application, and also considering that I did nothing but click on maybe 2 buttons to colorize an entire video. So there you go. And obviously it's going to take a little time to render, but there it is. And by the way, to output this video as an MP4, you can click on the flyout menu, click on render video, and from here just select H.264 or QuickTime or whatever you want and export the video.
Oh, that's nice. I always thought you had to go up to the file, export. So it's nice you can right click too.
Yep.
Cool.
And let's move on to the next example. Now let's look at a perspective warp. I made a tutorial on this recently on my YouTube channel, but basically it's a tool that allows you to distort the perspective of objects. And it works great on man-made objects, but it doesn't work great with organic objects. So people, animals, trees, things like that, it becomes very difficult to work with. But with, crates, cars, buildings, rooms, and things like that, it works fabulous. So after you mask your object, you can right-click on it to convert it into a smart object. Just in case you don't know, a smart object is a container that can hold one or more layers, and it allows you to apply non-destructive, in other words, editable, adjustments, distortions, filters, and transformations. So you can always make changes or remove the adjustment entirely if you wish. If you go into edit and choose perspective warp, you'll have access to the layout. You can see the options, layout and warp. And in the layout, you need to create a grid that matches the perspective of this crate. So I'm going to go quickly here. There it is. Looks fantastic. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be close enough. Then I'm going to create the other face, click and drag. Notice that when you get close to the edge, it'll highlight. And when it highlights, you can release and it'll snap into place. And then I just have to worry about this one side. And the same thing on top. Let me make sure this is a little better placed. Click, drag, it'll highlight, snap into place, release, click and drag, highlight, it snaps in, release, it snaps into place. And now you just have to worry about this corner. Now, we haven't really talked about like how to make something look, like it belongs in Photoshop, but it has to do with perspective. If you, let me just click on the check mark to commit the changes and I can come back and change it. If you look at the background, we can see a ground plane, which is the street, and the sky, which is the sky. If you imagine that there were no buildings here, just a plane and a sky, where would they meet? They will meet right about here. You can almost see it there, right? Anything below that will be the ground and anything above that would be the sky. So this is the horizon line. And for this to look realistic, the cube will not be in this position because we can see this point here higher than the horizon line. So everything on top, the top face, would need to be below the horizon line for this to look realistic. So we can now use these points to, oops, sorry about that. I'm in the layout option. I need to be in warp. To get to warp, you can of course click on warp, or if you want to be fancy, you can press the W key on the keyboard to go into the warp view, or the L key to go back into layout. L and W, see that? L and W. If you're in layout, you can press the enter key and that'll get you into warp. But if you're in warp and you press enter or return, it'll commit the changes. So anyway, you can press the W key for warp and then you can make these adjustments. See that? See how now I'm adjusting the perspective of this crate and it's looking a little more like it belongs here because I'm taking into account the perspective of the scene that it's in. You can also hold the shift key and click to constrain 2 points and move them at the same time. It also puts them in a straight edge. See that? When I do that, I hover over, it turns yellow, hold shift, click, and it straightens those like so.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, so this is really, really cool. You can completely change the perspective of these kinds of objects. And obviously, you can adjust this until you have something that looks good to your eye. I'm not saying this is perfect, but this is much better than that. Just looks a little bit more realistic. And you have to now worry about shadows, color matching, all that fun stuff that comes with compositing. Let me show you a couple other ways in which you can use this feature. You can use it to change the perspective of a street, like this one. If you go into edit and choose perspective warp, you can change the perspective of the street. And you know what? You don't even have to be that precise. You can just do something like this, and this should work. Something like that. Not even that precise. Press the W key, hold shift, click on this line, and then now see that how I can change the perspective of the street. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, wild.
And let me see. I also have another example here.
Can you throw like an image on the side of the box, put into perspective pretty easily?
Well, it depends on what the image is. But what I have here is, and I thought I had it ready to roll, but I don't see it. There it is. What you can do, and I'm going to make this smaller so that it's easier to work with in the stream. We'll just make this like 1900 or something. There we go. What you can do is also change the perspective of the room. You can go into edit, perspective warp. I'll go super fast here because, you guys know how to match the faces or the grid to the face of the image. And I just don't want to spend all day on that, but I do got to make sure it's accurate enough, but not, super perfect. And then I can do this side.
Nice.
And now I will do the bottom and snap that into place and then place this one accordingly. And I just want to make sure that the entire image is in there. Cool. And what I can do now is press the W key to go into warp and then click and drag on these points and notice how I'm Changing the perspective of the room. And I know that one looks pretty bad, but you get the idea. See how I completely can change the perspective of this room. So maybe now I'm looking at it from like a different angle. I'm looking at it from above now. See that?
So Venue Hero 15 asks, can I use perspective warp for straightening a building? Which I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. I mean, I don't know if that'll be the best tool for the job, but you certainly could. For example, I have a building here, and what you can do is go into edit perspective warp. I don't know why I blanked there. Sorry. Edit perspective warp, and you can match the perspective as best as you can on these buildings. And
I love the way it snaps to it, right?
yeah, it's pretty cool when it snaps. It just, I don't know, just it feels nice to see it snap. And let me just try to get the perspective as best as I can. So at this point, I can go into warp, and I could definitely change the perspective. See what I did there? I held shift and click on these arrows, and it straightened those lines. That was terrible. I shouldn't do that. But it helps you remove the perspective of the building, and in reality I can move it like this so it's completely straight and like 100% change the perspective if I wanted to, maybe do something like that, which looks terrible, of course, but you see the power, right? I completely changed the perspective of that side of the building. But you can definitely use this tool to change or remove the perspective of a building, which I think is what the question was. Right. So this is the result, and this is the original image. See that?
Cool. And my friend Paul asks, can you control drag a single point?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. Oh man, let me go back to this one. Oops, I didn't do a smart object on any of those, but that's the downside. See, you have to use a smart object. Yeah, you can. When you're working with the warp, you can just click on one point, and I'm only adjusting the center point, right? And now I can only adjust this point here on the right, or I can adjust the point on the top, whatever you want to adjust.
Cool.
And again, if by holding shift and clicking between 2 points, the line will highlight in yellow, and then you can adjust those 2 points, and then create a weird looking shape like that one.
Sculpture that then a city will buy for $500,000.
100%.
Now, Jan says, Andrew, can you show the replay link again? So I haven't shown the replay link for it, but just in general, the replay for this will be on YouTube, and I will be posting that link to the various Facebook groups and on my Twitter and LinkedIn. So I will always share the link to watch this to your heart's content again and again afterwards. Thanks.
Fabulous.
And someone says, in a few weeks, you can probably just ask Adobe Firefly to do it.
Yeah. Since you mentioned Firefly, why don't we do something with Firefly? I wasn't planning on showing it, but let me see. What can we do? You know what? One of the things that I would use Firefly for at the moment is for like compositing. So if I had like, let's see, I don't know if this is going to work, Andrew, but we're going to have some fun. Yeah, if I have, let me see. I think I have a picture of like of a person here. Let's see. I don't know which one of these will be the best candidate. We'll just try this guy. This guy looks like he's cool. And if we go into Firefly, and I'll bring it up. So for those of you that don't know what Firefly is, this is Adobe's beta release program to generate AI images. You can go into firefly.adobe.com. You're going to have to request for to join the wait list. Yeah. So they can allow you in. At the moment, you can do two things: text to image, text effects, and coming soon, recolor vectors. But one of the things I'm most excited about, myself at least, is this one right here, text to brush. So you can generate Photoshop brushes and Fresco from a text description. So if you need like a cloud brush or smoke or something like that, you'll be able to type, I need a smoke brush. And then you can have a brush that paints smoke, which I think is super, super cool. And I mean, different things, all these things are amazing, of course, but I'm just like super excited to be able to just download brushes. So When you click on generate, you can just enter whatever description you want here for what you want. So one of the ways that I would use AI at the moment is to generate assets for compositing. So if I wanted to give this guy sunglasses, I could say something like aviator sunglasses, or maybe make them like blue, blue aviator sunglasses. How about that? Blue
Cool.
aviator sunglasses. I don't know if this is going to work, so I'm just going to hit on generate and see what happens. So here we are. And I'm going to go into photo, by the way. I'm going to click on the content type, make it photo instead of artistic like that, and click on generate. And hopefully I can get something that could work. Maybe these probably would have worked if there was, more space. I don't know why it
It's too
cropped
bad
it.
it cuts off on the edge, right?
Yeah. And let's see. Okay, this one's probably will work. Yeah, these ones will work.
Yeah.
These will work too, probably, but these ones will work. So then now what I can do is click on the download button, and yes, don't show. Actually, I'll leave this on so I can show it when I teach. But this is basically the rights that I have at the moment with that asset. I can click and continue, and Adobe will download this. And I have a really messy desktop, but that's okay. I'll place it on there, and I can go into File, Open. And I'm going to open that up in Photoshop. There it is. And at the moment, when you're in beta, you are going to have a little watermark here. But the point is that this was generated, by me just typing in a prompt, and now I can use it in my project. And I can just now use this like I would use any other image in Photoshop. I can click and drag to make a selection using the quick selection tool. And obviously there's a lot of different ways of making selections in Photoshop. I just thought that this will be the easiest way to make a selection. I'm noticing that I'm going to have a bit of a challenge to select that edge here. So what I usually do in situations like this is I'll press the Q key on the keyboard to enter the quick mask mode. Anything in red is not selected. So what I can do now is select the brush tool. With white, I can paint on the pixels to keep. So I'm going to click once, hold shift, and click again. And I'll keep repeating that process to make sure that those edges are, in fact, in my selection. So shift click, shift click, shift click, shift click. And I'm actually not releasing the shift key, by the way. I'm just holding on to the shift key, and I'm clicking. And the reason I'm undoing is because I didn't like the line that I painted. But basically,
I was just saying, I'm a big fan of quick mask too, and some people think of it as old school, but I still love it.
well, as long as it works, right? It doesn't matter when it was added to Photoshop. If it works, it works. And here I'm just going to paint with black, just to make sure I get these edges right. And there we go. And then when you press the Q key again, you get the selection. I noticed I missed a spot. So I'm going to go back in there and paint these areas in. And, we don't have to be perfect for this example, but if we wanted to be perfect, we could be. And actually, there's no such thing as perfect. It's close, the illusion of perfection. Then we can click on the layer mask icon, and that looks fab. I can now double click on the side here to bring up the selected mask mode, and I can smooth it. By the way, so you can see what's going on, go in the black and white view, and notice how some of these edges are pretty jagged, and I want them smoother. So I can just use the smooth button or slider here to smooth those edges. So that's before, that's after. I can increase the contrast to sharpen them, and that looks great. I'll press OK, and look at how good my mask looks. Now, I can take these sunglasses and put them in on him. Oh, look at that. Oh my God, this is pretty good. It's actually
good.
not, I need to scale them a little bit. Before I scale them, I'm going to convert this into a smart object so I can work non-destructively. And I may have to adjust the perspective just a tiny bit, maybe like that. And maybe scale it in like so. And,
It's pretty cool though. Yeah.
Yep. There we go.
That looks good. Yeah.
And obviously we can work with here, the side of the glasses, we might have to, completely fake that. But the point is that this is how I probably would use Firefly at the moment. What I would do now if I really was working on a project is I would create a new layer, select the color of the shadows here on his face, and I will use, like, ideally, if you have it, a Wacom tablet, and just paint in some of those shadows in there,
Sure.
just to make it look more realistic.
Nice.
But anyway, this is more or less how I would use Firefly at the moment. And then I'll show you some other things you can do with Firefly. But we
Yeah,
were
let's
able
say
to.
you want to show the some of the text tricks. I think that's pretty cool too, where you can add the texture.
Yeah. Let me bring that up. So in Firefly, you can go back and go into the text effects, which are right here. Click on generate, and you can enter a text. I'll enter my initials, J and R, and you can type in a description, like what would be good. I don't know. We'll just say grass and see what comes up. Click generate, and you'll see the text that you typed, and
That's wild.
Firefly would generate grass over your
Cool.
text, and you can select from different styles. There's 4 to choose from, so you can click on these guys and see which one works better for you out of the 4. You can generate something else that looks pretty cool.
Nice.
And there's options. You can select a fit. This is a medium fit, and this is a tight fit. How the artwork sticks to the edges of the text. And this is loose, so this is going to protrude out pretty far out compared to the other two. See that?
That's
and you
cool.
can select the font. You can click on view all and select a different font. So maybe we'll go with this one and see how this font changes the effect, right? And one of the cool things is that you can select a transparent background. So you're not stuck with a color. You can just select transparent background. And when you download it, this will give you a PNG. And if it's something with a background, it'll give you a JPEG. But
Cool.
I personally wouldn't use anything with a background, because notice that there's a lot of weird white areas here. And with transparency, that will be, I don't know, easier to fix, or it wouldn't be such a big issue.
So I'm just curious if you replace grass with like ice cream.
All right, let's do ice cream. See what
happens.
Or... Give us in the chat, let us know what we should generate.
That's it.
And let me know what people are saying, Andrew. Oh, look at that, ice cream.
You're saying amazing. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm glad I said that. Ice cream is pretty good.
Yeah, and I'm going to change the fit to tight just to see the difference. Yeah. These all look pretty good, actually. Good call, Andrew. These look pretty good. Any suggestions in the chat?
Different flavors, right?
Yeah, right. Like vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, Paul says type in Rocky Road ice cream.
All right, let's try it. Rocky Road. It's going to do a road. Let's see.
Yeah, it might do something weird. It takes it literally sometimes, huh?
Is that Rocky Road? I'm not sure, but I guess
like a mixture. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can do some. I don't know. Give me another one.
Biscuits and gravy.
Biscuits
and gravy.
And gravy. Let's see.
Yeah, it looks more like pretzels or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty fun though, that's for sure.
Definitely fun. And something you can do is when you finally get access into Firefly, what you can do is look through the gallery. And if there's one that you like for example, you really like that one, you can just click on it. And the prompt used to generate that effect was already pre-filled. See that? And the word Firefly was on there by default, but we can do something, like.
Here's a good one. Wild ribbons, says someone.
Wild ribbons. Okay.
That's kind of interesting.
Actually, this one looks pretty cool. The one that they had as a preset. And that one's also pretty cool. Wild ribbons. Yeah. Yeah. So you can have a lot of fun. I mean, this is quite addicting, I must admit, that you can just come in here and just start creating these cool effects. Something.
So
I was going to say something. What was I going to say?
So someone was saying, how do you get access to it? So let me just.
So at the moment, just go into firefly.adobe.com and there'll be a place to join the waiting list. There'll be a button somewhere there, firefly.adobe.com.
Right.
And if you, again, same thing with the text to image. If you are scrolling through the gallery and there's something that you really, really like, you can click on it and it will generate an image based on that prompt that was used. So for example, if you like this Labradoodle playing an electric guitar and click on it, then it'll give you similar results. Something I noticed, Andrew, and by the way, I have a video on my YouTube channel. If you go into photoshoptrainingchannel.com, that's my website. But if you go to the YouTube channel, let me put pause. I made a video where I talked about Adobe Firefly. There it is. And I did a lot of comparisons between Firefly and Midjourney, and I talked about, some of the differences that I saw. And yeah, feel free to check out that video. It's on my YouTube channel. But anyway, the reason that I was mentioning that is one thing that I noticed is that Firefly is pretty good at generating objects that would be in like stock photography websites. So one of the things I noticed was that like product shots look really great. The example I used in my video was headphones against a solid background. And
Jan said something about that you can also change the aspect ratio.
Yes.
Top.
Yes.
Generate wider version of the sunglass.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that. So at the moment, it generated this art style, but I can change the content type to photo. And as Jan was mentioning in the chat, you can change the aspect ratio. You can click on this drop down here and you can select, for example, like widescreen if I wanted to create maybe like a thumbnail for a YouTube video, for example, which is what I did for the video that I just mentioned on my channel. But as you can see, these look pretty good. And my assumption is that, well, this one's not so good, but my assumption is that since there's so much product photography on Adobe stock, is probably really good at generating that type of content. But you have different options like color and tone and lighting and composition and all that stuff. I noticed also that macro photography was pretty good. So I think I did ant's head or something like that. Oh, it's too short.
I don't know if you had that kind of criteria telling you how short the prompt was.
Yeah. But anyway, it does see like this one on the top left is pretty good. So, there's it does a really good job with certain things. I also thought it did a really good job with food. So, a bowl of pasta on a wooden, I don't know if it's going to work, on a wooden table with, okay, a misspelled bowl, Jesus. A bowl of pasta on a wooden table. Let's see. There you go. I mean, I think these are pretty good. And again, my assumption is that since Firefly was trained using Adobe stock images, that was one of the sources. That also everything that, as far as I understand, everything that Firefly used to learn how to generate images is stuff that Adobe has the copyright to, including Adobe stock. So my assumption is that if you type in a prompt of something that's likely to be on a stock website, you're going to get pretty good results. But that's just my assumption. I don't know.
Micah says, get more detailed with your prompts. Use a macro photo of close-up of ant's head, 85 millimeter DSLR.
Yeah, right. 100%. And especially, so I'm not exactly sure how it works with Firefly, but definitely with Midjourney, adding stuff like what Micah just suggested would generate better results. But anyway, I guess that was enough for Firefly. I highly recommend everyone to go and request for access firefly.adobe.com, and then make sure you click on, it's going to be somewhere in the page. I think it's in the top right. a button for you to join the beta. And I don't know how long the wait list is at the moment, but yeah, I recommend that you check it out.
Yeah, a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Definitely.
Cool.
Cool. Anyway, and here's our guy. And of course, we would need to fix, again, this is not a compositing course, but I would, if this was a real project, I would, fix the saturation and, the contrast and all that to match the composite better. But
Nice.
we were just having fun with Firefly when we did that. But that's one of the ways in which I would use Firefly at the moment. For the type of work that I do, like at least now, who knows, maybe in a year or two or whatever, but at least now it will not give me exactly what I need, but it will definitely give me assets that I can use.
Yeah, I don't think it's for now. It's learning from the words that we give it, but it doesn't seem to take certain advanced descriptions, like when I put in, say, 8K resolution and type of lighting,
right?
Rembrandt lighting or something. It didn't really change it so much, but I
Mhm.
think in the future it'll probably be really extensive. So.
Yeah, probably. I would assume as much. Let's talk a little bit about, let's see, there's so much here that I have. How much time do we have, Andrew? We have about 10 minutes?
More like 15, 20 minutes. Yeah.
15, 20. Well, am I supposed to be done by 2, right?
You can go a little bit further, about 15 minutes then. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about, why not? We'll talk about this. We'll talk about color grading and what that is and how people could use it to create, some cool images. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about color grading. So what is color grading? Color grading is applying I like to think about it as applying a creative color correction to an image so that it helps you tell a better story. So you see this often in movies in general, not just movie posters, where, for example, the Matrix movie has a green tint to it just to help it drive the point home that you are in a simulation. So applying that green tint to the film makes it so that the story's told better. So that's basically how I like to think about color grading. Like, how can you tell a better story by adding color to an image?
Cool.
So in this case, we have this character, and he's probably a spy, or he's probably out of like a action movie just based on how he's dressed in the background. So to drive that point home, I could do like the cinematic, the typical blockbuster color combination, which is blues and teals against yellows and oranges. And side story, the reason that that color combination is very popular is because those colors are complementary of each other in the color wheel. If you go into color.adobe.com, you can see a color wheel. So again, color.adobe.com. And from here, you can click on complementary, and you can see that the blues, teals, and greens are opposing the yellows, oranges, and reds, which is why you see that often in a lot of movies, especially summer blockbusters. But yeah, so you can sort of create that effect in Photoshop as well. And the reason that they're used is because they're complementary colors, as I said, and when you put complementary colors side by side, they tend to pop. So the actor will pop on screen if you surround them with blues and teals, because his skin tones will be in the reds and oranges, and no matter your ethnicity, the skin tones are found in the reds and yellows. So how can we apply a cool color to the midtones, but then leave everything else intact, and if anything, enhance those colors with more reds or yellows? There's a lot of ways. There's not a single way. One of the ways that you can do it with is by using a curves adjustment layer. The way that I like to think of the curves adjustment layer is as a dimmer switch, like what you would have at home. You will notice that right here, there's this little dim gray line. So any point that you add above that light will increase light, and anything that you add below that line will decrease light. So if I add a point and drag it up above that line, is going to increase light. If you drag it below that line, it'll decrease light. Again, just like a dimmer switch. And then we have individual channels, red, green, and blue. If you go into the red channel and we drag up, we increase the light in that channel, so we get more red. If we decrease, go below that center line, we get the opposite color, which is cyan in this case.
Nice.
With the green channel, adding light gives you green, subtracting gives you magenta. And with the blue channel, dragging up gives you blue, dragging down gives you yellow. And I made this graphic here showing that relationship: red channel, green channel, blue channel. And what we can do in this case is go into the red channel, and in the darks here, we can subtract red, and notice how it starts introducing cyan. And maybe in the highlights here, we'll keep it right where it was to not lose so much of that red. In the blue channel, we can add blue in the shadows, maybe bring the highlights back, not to lose so much of that. So we already started creating a little bit of that effect just by making that quick adjustment. And then we can go back into the RGB composite and maybe add contrast to the image to, make it seem more dramatic. So we added the quote unquote cinematic, the typical cinematic effect using just a couple points on the curves adjustment layer. Another way to create a similar effect with perhaps a little more control, or I shouldn't say more control, I should say easier to understand control, is by going into the selective color adjustment layer. And from here, you have these colors and tones that you can select. And if you select neutrals, you can now apply any one of these, cyan, magenta, or yellow, or the opposite colors by reducing these sliders. So we can add a little bit of cyan, we can reduce the yellow to add blue, and we get that effect. But notice that we also, actually, before I do that, let me also increase the black here just to give it more contrast. But notice that we also affected skin tones. Like I said before, the skin tones are found in the reds and yellows. We can go to the reds first, and now we can reduce cyan from the red. See that? And increase the yellow. And notice how it brings the skin tones back. And I can go into the yellows as well and do something similar, and I can adjust it accordingly. Something that works. And of course, you can adjust the magenta as well to try to get better skin tones. But notice how just by using those sliders, again, we created that effect. The, typical blue and orange color grade that is used in a lot of films in Hollywood. And of course, you're not.
That I watch.
I'm sorry?
A lot of the Netflix that I watch. Some
exactly.
Movies. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing you can do, and you're not stuck with one layer, by the way. You can use a curves adjustment layer and then apply, more contrast or whatever it is that you want to apply, and it creates that effect. So you can see just by using very simple adjustments, we can tell a better story now. And the story you were telling in this case, it's more like a, almost like a spy action movie, right? Which is a very, very different effect than if we were to use something like, maybe, let me think about this. If you go into the color lookup adjustment layer, Photoshop has color grades, 3D LUT tables that are already preloaded into Photoshop. And if you were to use something like, I don't know, let me see, there's one here called, is it the Crisp Worm? Not Crisp Worm. There's another one. Here, I'm gonna have to find it. Yeah, if we use like this edgy amber, that gives it a completely different tone, and now the story is completely different. And of course, you can reduce opacity and make adjustments and all that fun stuff. But the point is now we're telling a different story. It doesn't feel like it's the same photo. So there's no right or wrong when it comes to color grading. Whatever helps you tell the story that you want to tell, those are the colors that you use. But in this specific example, we were going for that, action movie look, and this is an example. And if the colors are too saturated, you can create a hue and saturation adjustment layer, go into the blues, and maybe bring down the saturation of those as well, and get something that looks like that. So there's Again, no right or wrong. It depends on what you want in your image.
Right. And I was going to say, do you like the color grading in the filter Camera Raw?
Yeah, definitely. Good question, Andrew. So if I'm going to convert it to a smart object in Camera Raw recently, what was it, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, they added this wonderful color grading feature. It used to be called duotone, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody will correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but they used to have a feature called duotone where you can apply colors to the highlights and shadows, but now they added the color grading feature that allows you to add colors to the midtones and to the overall image. So you can sort of do the same thing here. You can go into the shadows and maybe add that same teal orange color and then reduce the brightness just to add more contrast. Very similar to what we just did. For this example though, I'm going to, make extreme adjustments so that you can see. So shadows are blue. And then we'll make the highlights red and, brighten them up again, red. And then we can make the midtones, we'll make those green. So see how we have control of the shadows that are blue, the highlights that are red, and the midtones that are green. And I know this probably looks terrible, but it helps us illustrate how this works. Then you can go into the global option here and apply a color on top of all of that. So I can now add this magenta color on top of everything. So you can add colors specifically to the shadows, midtones, and highlights, and then add a global adjustment. So it's completely editable, very, very powerful. I highly recommend that you check it out. I probably would never do this, but I just needed to have different colors so that it was obvious in the image.
Options, right?
100%. Yep.
And Jan says that the old title used to be split tone.
Split tone, not dual tone. Thank you, Jen. Thank you. I couldn't remember. I think I said dual tone, which I was wrong. Split tone. Thank you, Jen.
Cool. Nice.
And let me see. I guess another thing you can do with Camera Raw. I wasn't planning on showing this, but we were talking about Camera Raw. Let me see. I know I have a photo here of buildings that will probably be a good example.
Or maybe like how everything's contained in Camera Raw, so you can go from one section to the next and easily change this, tonal correct, color correct, then do some color grading.
Yeah, for sure. It's. I mean, I tell people just go down the list and you'll be fine with Camera Raw.
And do you tend to use Lightroom as well? Do you like Lightroom?
I do. I mainly use Lightroom for my personal stuff, but not necessarily for my professional work, only because it's not in the workflow that the projects that I work on. But I definitely use Lightroom often in my personal work because it's just great. I love Lightroom Mobile. I use it like almost every photo that I really want to keep that I shoot with my phone gets edited in Lightroom Mobile, and then sometimes it makes it over to my desktop. But I love Lightroom Mobile.
Great for organizing too, right?
Yeah, it's fabulous. Another thing you can do with Camera Raw, which relates to color grading, is if you go into the Camera Raw filter, you have access to the color mixer, and this allows you to select a specific color and then adjust the hue, saturation, and luminance. So one cool effect that you can do is, for example, in this case, I'm just going to disregard the warm colors from what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to select the cool colors. So green, and then reduce the saturation. And I'll do the same thing with blue or whatever, aqua, blue, purple, and magenta. And then you can create, an effect like this. And I'm not really liking the red either. So maybe even though this is a warm color, maybe I'll adjust it just too strong, or maybe move it over, shift the hue and make it more of an orange yellow color. But the point is that you can create these effects by using these specific color sliders in the color mixer and Camera Raw. So this is another way in which I would use Camera Raw to apply a creative color correction. And now we have that, cool looking effect where everything is black and white except for those specific colors that I chose to keep in color, and maybe, add the contrast, increase the contrast, reduce the shadows, increase the texture and clarity, just to make this more grungy and create that
Yeah.
effect. So
Different
before
mood.
and after.
Very different
That,
mood.
for sure.
Cool.
All right. Any other questions, Andrew? Before, I know it's 2 o'clock now. Any other questions in the chat? I'll be happy to answer any questions that people may have before I let you guys go.
Sure. Now, before that, I wanted to let's bring this back over here. Wanted to also remind people that Jesus will be at the Photoshop Creativity
Oh,
Virtual
that's right.
Summit, April
Yes.
17th through 20th. There you are up top, next to Bert Monroy. Pretty nice. Eh?
Yeah. That's very good company, Bert Monroy, for sure.
Did you want to speak about that a bit? It's just
Yeah, so I'm going to be teaching 2 sessions on that. I'm going to be teaching a session on compositing principles. So basically, the artwork of compositing, or like the art principles of compositing that people don't usually think about. A lot of people focus on how the Photoshop tools work, which is great. You should know how they work, but we often don't think too much about what makes a photo seem realistic, and not just a photo. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk in that session also relates to just creating artwork in general. For example, a lot of the principles that I'm going to talk about will also apply to drawing, to painting. We're trying to create the illusion of a 3D environment in a flat surface. So I'm going to talk about perspective, atmospheric perspective, color matching, a whole bunch of stuff that could be applied to other things, but obviously within the context of Photoshop and creating composites. And my second session will be about, I think the official title is like Hollywood effects, or effects from the Hollywood industry, or
cool.
something like that. And it's just a lot of the tips and tricks that I've used in professional work in movie posters, and how you can also create some of those cool effects on your photos. It may seem complicated or difficult when you see it on a poster, but in reality, a lot of these things are somewhat simple, and almost anyone could apply them to their photos. So that's the 2 sessions that I'm going to be teaching at the summit and you just said the date, Andrew. I'm so sorry. I forget the date.
Oh,
April
it's
17th.
a
April
lot of
17th.
information to keep track of. So, but yeah, Photoshop
Yeah.
Creativity Virtual Summit, April 17th through 20th. And
yeah, and go back to the photo if you don't mind, Andrew, because I mean, there's a lot of fantastic artists. You mentioned Bert Monroy, in my opinion, the best Photoshop user ever, if I'm not mistaken, is Photoshop user number 6. Incredibly talented guy. Of course, Dave Cross, Corey Barker, who is well known for doing a lot of Photoshop 3D stuff. I don't know if he's going to be doing any Photoshop 3D now, since I know Adobe is discontinuing those features in Photoshop. But a lot of fantastic artists. Lisa Carney, who is the woman that got me involved in the poster creation industry. So thank you so much, Lisa, for that. We have Vanessa Rivera, who created one of the Photoshop splash face pages. I think Photoshop 2020 was the one she designed, if I'm not mistaken, 2020 or 2019. Glenn Dewis, who we all know, my good friend Teresa Jackson, fantastic artist. Aaron Blaze, who was a Disney animator. So we have a lot of amazing people. Karen Alsop, also, who is out of Australia, and she creates these amazing Christmas designs and posters for kids who are sick in the hospital. And everybody here is fantastic. So I'm very excited to check out all the sessions at this event.
Right. And so let me remind everyone that you can sign up for the Photoshop Creativity Virtual Summit for free. I have the link on the event pages, and it'll be in the recording of this event on my YouTube right there in the description. bit.ly Photoshop Creativity 2023. Also be aware that there is a VIP access pass options where you can watch at your own pace and get extras, such as I think some presets, maybe a PDF of some of the different sessions. So plenty of options for free or for the paid VIP access.
That's
pretty
right.
Cool. Yeah, Dave does a great job organizing these.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, the VIP also gets you access to the VIP party at Andrew Kavanagh's house. Andrew, feel free to post the address so we can all make it.
I'll be the bouncer there. So
yeah.
Where's your ID?
Yeah.
And then, so we got, let's see. Yep, Lisa Carney, Mike is talking about. Sandra says, looking forward to this. And UIX Tips says, hey guys, this is Akint. Great job. Jesus and Andrew, love both of what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
And great presentation. Or where is it? Right, great presentation. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Andrew. Andrea says, "Yay, we are going to Andrew's house."
Yeah, that's right.
And yeah, so yeah, Photoshop Creativity Virtual Summit coming up. And,
check out the link below. Yeah.
Yep, and do check out Adobe Firefly beta.
That's right.
And let me also go back to what Jan said. So link to the beta to join Firefly is adobe.com/sensei/generative-ai/firefly.html. If you look in the groups, you'll probably find it too, or just do a search online. You'll find it pretty
definitely
easily. So yeah, if someone says fantastic tips, great presentation. Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And Andrea says always great with Jesus.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Yeah, it was great. So yes, so a little shout out to Jesus himself. So let's see. There's Photoshop training channel.
Is that the website or what are you linking to?
Yeah, so this is your website.
Yeah, this is my website. So on the website you can find tutorials, and I used to have paid courses that I took down because I'm reworking all of them. So there will be new paid courses very, very soon.
Cool.
And these are just extensive pro training stuff that I don't necessarily show in the YouTube channel just because it takes too long to explain certain things. Sure. So these will be long format. Yeah, 100%. You'll be able to do that as soon as they're released. But I'm working on those now. I decided to just take out the stuff that was there just because I felt that it was old and I needed to like completely update everything. But there's new tutorials coming out every week on my YouTube channel. Wednesdays I'm publishing a new Photoshop tutorial, and Mondays and Fridays I publish a YouTube short, which is like a 1-minute tutorial, and that also goes on my Instagram and TikTok.
Right, so that's the Photoshop training channel on YouTube.
Photoshop training
2
channel.
million subscribers now, right?
Almost, man, almost. Hopefully in a couple months, 2 million.
That's right. Get them there, everyone.
Yep.
Get them to pass the 2 million mark. Great.
Thank you so much.
And you're also on TikTok.
TikTok at Jared from PCC. That's right.
Take it away.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
Great. Excellent. And just a reminder to subscribe for more digital art, Photoshop, and photography focused live streams and tutorials on my YouTube at Digital Art Drew. And feel free to go back and watch the various live events. Help get my watch time hours up. So where's that? And let's see, you got comments coming in. So Jan says you both are terrific. Thanks, Jesus and Andrew.
Thank you so much, Jan.
Thank you both. Look forward to watching replays, says Sandra.
For sure.
And Andrea, thanks for hosting another awesome show, Andrew. And Melinda, either of you have subscriptions on Behance?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do. It's behance.net/ad. Actually, no ad, just after the /JR from PTC, which is what you're seeing like right here, like down here, that same handle, but on Behance.
Cool. And I think mine is, let's see, maybe I'll just post it in the comments if it lets me. Yeah. So yeah, behance.net Drew Cav too. So yeah, excellent. So thank you so much, Jesus, and thanks everyone for being here. And yes, once again, if you check in the top of the Facebook groups as well as follow my YouTube, you will see the recording, the replay of this. So watch it to your heart's content, and do check out Jesus Photoshop training channel on YouTube as well.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great one.